Uh, and I think the fundamental aspect, the way I look at building a brand, is to really craft your unique value proposition, your unique value, brand promise, and how does that really align with the entire business model of the organization in terms of what you really deliver to the customer. So I think from a marketing standpoint, one of the most critical and complex task is to craft that value proposition and then socialize it both internally and externally. How do you take it internally first so that the organization believes and walks that brand promise and then delivers it back to the client, so that the client actually sees that as something which is what the organization stands for and not something which is just like a piece of communication which is being no in modern times. I have felt that ideation is becoming a collective job where a lot of people within the team, outside the teams, particularly from a marketing standpoint, are able to throw up all kind of suggestions and ideas, and I think you being at the central need to process that and understand what would work and what would not work.
Agree. Yeah.
And I think that is going to be the new context in which the marketing is going to operate. So obviously there is a demand and a growth aspect where the teams, marketing teams, are increasingly expected to contribute to that. And one of the important KRA that we carry is on the demand gen side. There's a lot of work that we do in terms of helping some of our sales colleagues get quality interactions with prospects out there. So there is a fairly organized track of demand gen that we drive, which is pretty much a mix of inbound and outbound both. So that's like a direct contribution. Then,
Welcome to the Marketing Couch. How often do you come across a CMO who has successfully navigated the complex world of global B2B marketing across telecom, fintech, and enterprise solutions for over 2 decades? Someone who has built marketing engines that span 100 plus countries and driven growth in some of the most challenging and emerging markets. Not too often, right? My guest for today's episode is exactly that leader. Today, my guest is Suryadeep Verma. Suryadeep is the Chief Marketing Officer at Comviva, a 25-year-old company that builds digital payment platforms and martech solutions for telecom operators globally. In our conversation, Suryadeep shares why he believes the biggest B2B marketing challenge isn't about channels, but getting your entire organization to live your brand promise. He walks us through his three pillar marketing approach that works across diverse global markets. He explains why he measures account based marketing through activities rather than revenue attribution. And he also reveals how he navigates complex B2B decision making by engaging both CXOs and user communities. We also dive into his philosophy on thought leadership content in the AI era, his practical advice on marketing and sales alignment, and also his candid take on what skills future CMOs really need to develop and stay relevant. With that, I bring you Suryadeep Verma. Hey Surya, welcome to the Marketing Couch. I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
hey, thanks, Jaydeep, and I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. I think this has been in planning for a while, and I was chasing you for a while to get your time, but I'm glad that finally we made it.
Absolutely,
So,
and I'm pleased to be here as well, and extremely excited to have this conversation.
wow. So that's good. So let's get started. My first question, straight away off the bat, right? What are the top three B2B marketing challenges that you think is exist today in 2025?
I think it's a great question to begin with. There is so much stuff which is happening around in terms of social media, and there are so many new touch points from a channel standpoint that have really emerged, that this whole kind of aspect of building a brand has become a fairly complex activity. As you really look at building a brand, some of the fundamentals though remain very much the same as what probably it were probably 5-10 years back. And I think the fundamental aspect, the way I look at building a brand, is to really craft your unique value proposition, your unique brand promise. And how does that really align with the entire business model of the organization in terms of what you really deliver to the customer? I think from a marketing standpoint, one of the most critical and complex tasks is to craft that value proposition and then socialize it both internally and externally. How do you take it internally first so that the organization believes and walks that brand promise and then delivers it back to the client so that the client actually sees that as something which is what the organization stands for and not something which is just like a piece of communication which is being run. So I believe that's the whole fundamental tenet of building a brand from a marketer standpoint. And I think that's the first challenge. The second challenge is, while a lot of this we are discussing from a marketing aspect, actually building a brand happens more in terms of when you interact with customer at all the touch points. How does your delivery experience look like? How does the sales experience look like? How do employees see you? So if you really look at all those touch points, how you drive and deliver a consistent experience across all those channels. And that's where the control at many a times lies outside marketing, right? So how you are able to integrate and weave this narrative across the organization so that everybody's purpose and mission is aligned towards delivering that promise. So I believe rallying everybody around that brand promise, ensuring that consistent experiences is something. And those are too many things if you look at from an entire challenge standpoint.
Agree. Yeah. I think the one of the most important challenges that you mentioned is to rallying around your team, making sure that they are in sync and you have their buy-in, because ultimately, like you mentioned, it's delivering on the promise the brand has promised to its customer and audience, right? And the true delivery happens when everything happens in sync. I think from that extent, a CEO or the top of the company actually plays a very important role, bringing in everybody together and basically explaining why this is done and why this is so critical, so that the overall fabric of the brand, the customers are able to live through, right? I
Absolutely.
think it is much easier to say than probably executing, and I'm sure who would know better than you about that. But yeah, I'm curious to deep dive on that more. But before we go ahead, Surya, can you talk about a little bit about your current role at Comviva and what Comviva does?
Yeah, Comviva is, we just kind of completed 25 years recently. So it's a 25-year-old company, started off uh, within Bharti Airtel almost 25 years back in 1999. Then it hived off as a separate company. We started off primarily with Airtel as the anchor client, and over the next decade or so expanded into multiple other regions. So we are fairly big in Middle East, Africa, Asia, and parts of Europe. Most of the business comes from telecom vertical, where we are centered on. Roughly about 3,000 people spread across Gurgaon, Bangalore, Mumbai, Pune, Bhubaneswar, and then multiple locations outside India like Netherlands and Kenya and Latin America as well. And a lot of our work happens around fintech, which is building digital payments platforms, digital BSS for primarily into telecom, CPaaS, and a whole bunch of martech platforms, which which helps companies derive incremental revenues. So those are the areas largely. I lead the whole marketing function here. I'm responsible for marketing within the company and been with the company for roughly about 6.5 years now.
Great. So, in terms of the market, right, which you said is Middle East, Africa, which brings, I guess, probably a large portion of your revenue. And then, of course, you have a fairly global split. And probably that's a good segue to my first question, and which is how easy or difficult it is to build a global brand, global services or solutions brand, in your opinion.
So look, I think building a brand, told you, it's a fairly intricate and it needs a fairly intricate and a sustained treatment over a period of time. It's difficult. It's difficult because it's not easy to craft out a very unique business model and then kind of articulate it to the client in a very sustained manner over a period of time. And that's what brands are. It's difficult. Having said that, I think a lot of this really depends in terms of how well you are really engaged and standing on your promise. I think that's the whole crux of it. I think over a period of time, organizing your branding activities around a certain set of propositions that you really believe in is core. Being focused in terms of channels, being focused in terms of programs, and more so in terms of the attributes that you want to really call out from your organization and branding standpoint is something which is there. India comes with a certain set of prejudices as well, being a low cost IT services hub the way they started. But I think a lot is changing in terms of India now seen as kind of a fountainhead of innovation also on the product side. Comviva was one of the earlier companies which actually started building products from an India market standpoint. So we have that, you know, sustained presence and visibility for over 2 decades for people to really know that brand. And particularly from a telecom standpoint, organizations have seen us out there in the market and stand for certain values, which is really important to kind of build a mind share and a presence.
Got it. Now, talking about B2B marketing, as we know, it has so many tenets, right? I mean, be it brand building, demand generation, social, community, analyst relations, PR, sometimes maybe even financial relations, so many other aspects of B2B marketing. How does how do you prioritize? How do you, I mean, and how do you suggest that a head of marketing prioritizes? Is it more of quarterly focus, annual focused? Can you share some thoughts on that?
So, I think one of the key aspects is to understand your organization business model and then understand the marketing mix that works for your organization. So, in terms of the sub functions that you really spoke about, what I have really seen working well from Comviva standpoint is really building focus on your digital and social media drumbeat. And I
Which
think
is
that's,
basically inbound, right?
uh, I would say, outbound. I'm talking about more in terms of ensuring that your social media play is absolutely on top. And people, so say for example, we operate in about 100 plus countries across the globe. How do customers across this geography keep on hearing about the action which is happening back at Comviva? So social obviously has really stepped up in the last like few years or so. So it has become very critical for us in terms of ensuring that the clients are updated in terms of the product launches which are happening, the wins that we are making, the awards that are going on, the action on the employee side, and so on. So I think that's a very high priority.
And what kind of social platform you use primarily?
I mean, LinkedIn
LinkedIn.
is kind of the key. We also are fairly active on the Instagram side. Twitter, we haven't seen working as well. It's a very quick and a fast medium, which either works for you or it doesn't work for you. So I think it's largely LinkedIn and then Insta. Uh, the other thing is the analysts, extremely important in a business that we are in, where a third party earned recognition is absolutely fundamental. So we have a lot of focus on that side. The third I would say is account based marketing and client advocacy. As I said, about 80-85% of the revenue comes from a single vertical. So it's a closed community. So it's extremely important to call out what you're doing with some of the accounts that you're working for, and how customers are endorsing the work in their own words. It's one thing to talk about something on social, but the entire play changes if there's a customer who kind of talks about. So there's a lot of focus which is on driving account based marketing actions, like uh, doing joint case studies, press releases, joint customer events, internal events, participating in their annual events, etc., etc. So there's a great amount of work that we do with customers on a regular basis, and I would say these are the top three actually.
Got it. So within account-based marketing, what kind of, I mean, what is your success criteria there? I mean, do you look at how much you're penetrated within an account, or is this
So
number of
that is
leads that
not
you've
the success
generated?
criteria. We actually do more of activity based measurement. How
Hmm.
many accounts that we really touched. We don't directly link it in terms of revenue growth or any other number, because most of the times I feel that they don't give you a very accurate picture. So the idea pretty much is that how many accounts that you really touch, how many stakeholders that you have really engaged over a period of time, and we kind of do more of a activity based metrics there.
Got it. So it's more engagement focused, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. All right. So, as we know, in B2B, the decision making is complex and usually it is long as compared to any other segment. And often there are multiple decision makers who are involved in building or making a decision. How do you navigate this complexity within your telecom vertical, let's say? And
So a
who
lot of
are some of
this.
those key type of roles who actually are the important decision makers in this business?
So it's decision making in B2B is complex, and there's a group based decision making that happens. What we have really observed over a period of time is, while the CXOs are the ultimate decision maker, there's a lot of influence that even user based communities actually have while recommending products, or somebody who would be the actual person who may not be like super senior there, but who will have a considerable role in doing research on the capabilities that are needed. So while most of the time you would like to influence the senior most decision maker, it's important to ensure that many of your actions actually spread across the organization, which includes not only the CTO and the CIO organization, but the user organizations as well. In our case, most of the products actually are extremely essential on the business side. So we have seen more and more decision making getting influenced from the user group. And I think that's the reason a lot of our actions, pretty much on the account based marketing and some of the related programs, would uh, would actually engage the user groups. People like
How do you do
CMOs.
that? Can you give me an example?
So, say for example, we have created a CXO forums. So, while you would have a CTO forum largely, there are other LOB forums that we have created where we go out and we will pretty much discuss back with them in terms of what's happening in the industry, say a CMO forums. So, there's a close group of CMOs that we have put together, peer group. Every 6 to 8 weeks, we will have them come together. So that's like a program that we run. We do programs like success meets, where we would engage with customer stakeholders. That would include both the CTO, the IT organization, and the user organization. And we would celebrate a lot of milestones jointly, as and when we kind of achieve them, to kind of bring over a sense of joint achievement, purpose, etc. So there are and we recognize people both on the tech side, on the user side. So there are programs that we run internally, which are specifically meant to engage people both on the IT side and on the user side.
Got it. So, in terms of the thought leadership marketing, right, which is very widely sort of are evangelized or spoken about or discussed, particularly to build a narrative, build a point of view, and influence a certain buyer community, be it some certain type of CXOs or within a particular vertical, let's say telecom in your case, right? What kind of thought leadership is working for you, you think, and probably you have tried, and probably what other types probably don't work for you in your business?
So content is becoming very, very tricky because of this whole capability buildup that has happened because of AI, right? And there was a trend about 5 years back where people were moving from text to video content. Then it became small 30-minute, 50-second, 30-second, 50-second small bits of videos. So that is becoming even shorter in terms of the ability of people to consume, right? So the amount of investment and focus that teams had on serious content like white papers and research book, which was there probably 5-7 years back, I think people are reconsidering some of that. So, in my view, I have seen people leaning more towards sharp one pager contents where you are able to articulate your thought process very strongly. From a Comviva standpoint, the way we have organized our whole kind of content playbook is to put together, so first of all, identify certain messaging tracks and then kind of weave certain pillar content around it. And a lot of these pillar content are industry studies or researches where we will go out and do a dipstick safe with about 100 senior decision makers, say on the IT side, on the fintech side, or on the CMO organization side, and then kind of compile some of this analysis, and then we organize it and take it back to the
So
community.
this is like commissioning a study kind of
A
thing, right?
study which is a peer study where the
Peer study.
industry is responding to some of the trends, some of the movements which are happening, and then kind of circling back to the industry with some of those insights. I think some of that works because people still want to understand and see what's really happening and what some of the peer leaders are thinking. And then we organize some of this content into bits and pieces of small blogs and ebooks, etc., that can be consumed. But fundamentally, what we are trying to do is to engage the community more and more, and bring in their insights while building content, which ensures that there is better relevance, and then there is a originality in terms of what we are creating.
Got it. And do you partner with someone to
Yeah,
do these
there
studies?
are kind of partners who help us running some of these surveys and research, but we kind of work very tightly with them in terms of understanding the whole theme, the kind of people that we need to go out and talk to. So some of this works closely with a partner.
Got it. Okay. And one of the key partner particularly from a go-to-market perspective for you is sales, right? And in B2B, it's an eternal sort of debate how marketing really contributes to the business and help influence the key audience and therefore influence the growth and revenue and so on, right? So how do you navigate this relationship within your organization, and what has been your experience, not maybe just Comviva where you actually spend quite a bit of time now, but overall in your career, if I have to look back, what were the key learning? But let's start from Comviva, maybe where you are right now.
So obviously there is a demand and a growth aspect where the teams, marketing teams, are increasingly expected to contribute to that. And one of the important KRA that we carry is on the demand gen side. There's a lot of work that we do in terms of helping some of our sales colleagues get quality interactions with prospects out there. So there is a fairly organized track of demand gen that we drive, which is pretty much a mix of inbound and outbound both. So that's like a direct contribution. Then, there are forums and events which are happening on the industry side where you enable some of those interactions clubbed under demand gen again. There is enablement where you are helping them with content, helping them with pieces of insights that they can go out and kind of. There are support areas that happen, as and when you get into a serious complex RFP conversations, where you also would need to specifically kind of highlight your branding with a very targeted group. And that's where we work with them to drive some of very focused campaign on a target group, right, which would be around a certain very specific opportunity. So I think that those are becoming very strategic and very focused from a sales standpoint. Well,
Sales.
ultimately the revenue goals and the order book goals lie with sales. But from a marketing standpoint, we do carry targets in terms of meetings, opportunity, which is how much can you contribute to the pipeline, right? And but there is a handover that happens in terms of funnel opportunity, and then the closure and the wins and the actual revenue is something that the sales is going to be responsible for.
Got it. But how about your previous roles? I mean, what has been your learning so far? What works and what don't?
From a from a sales standpoint, I think there are different contexts of businesses. In the SaaS kind of a business, marketing is taking more and more ownership of the entire life cycle, right, from acquisition to the conversion side. So it pretty much is a function of the kind of business that you are in our case, the typical kind of life cycle of opportunity would stretch on an average of about 6 months or more, and it would require deep demos. It would require complex showcase of capabilities, etc., etc. So it's a very different kind of environment that we are in. Telecom is a business where most of the customers that we work with would work with, say, multi millions of end customers. So in such kind of a scenario, what you really need is a on-prem, stable, highly scalable software or a platform, which would then need a whole bunch of proof case, POC, testing. So it's very different from what you would typically see on the SaaS side. So the contribution, so what marketing does is, one, bring some of those interactions and introductions and meetings, and then kind of help work with the product teams in weaving out some of the demos, assets, collaterals to progress some of those opportunities.
Got it. Switching slightly on the different side, uh, how big is your marketing team and what kind of roles you have in your marketing team?
You know, we have we have a team of about 12, 14 core team members, and then we work with multiple agencies the team would kind of tightly work with. In terms of sub functions, there is a team that runs digital and social media. We do a lot of work on the analyst side, so there's a dedicated ownership there. There is a team that drives demand gen. There is a media and external communication function. Then there is a team of product marketing that we have inbuilt, which would interlock with the product units internally, more on the content side, specific events, specific campaigns, stuff like that. So that's how the team is kind of organized. Then we
Got it.
also own the employer branding back end.
Mm,
So
mm,
there is one team member who would kind of drive the employer branding related stuff.
mm. Okay. And in your opinion, do you think having, like, in your case, it sounds like you have a full stack marketing team pretty much across different important functions that a B2B marketer would have. How about design? Do you have that in house or do you
We have an
work
agency
with?
who kind of helps us. So it's kind of outsourced with the agency. With a design team, I think the whole context there is that it is seen as a role uh, where you probably would need a very dedicated expertise,
Hmm.
and you also would need to show a career roadmap for that kind of professionals, right?
Okay.
So it's difficult. What I've seen is it's difficult to kind of bake in design capabilities if you're working with a lean team.
Hmm.
It's better to kind of work with partners there, where you probably will have a very focused set of people working for that agency.
Yeah, no, makes sense completely because some of these functions, it's hard to give them growth path within probably a B2B marketing setup who are solely focused on design and want to pursue that as the career. Probably an agency or a design house is better suited for such professionals, or right. So yeah, wanted to talk about a little bit about your marketing stack or tech stack. What kind of tech stack you work with within your organization, your marketing side, and can you refer to maybe some kind of a workflow that helps our viewers to understand that where these tech stacks fit into your overall marketing function?
So we on the demand gen side, we have HubSpot, which is uh, the CRM that we use. Then we have couple of tools that we use on the database side. We have Zoom Info and Lucia and Seamless
Hmm.
that we use on the database side. We have few LinkedIn Sales Navigator licenses that we kind of use for ABM and outreach. We also have started doing a bit of intent based marketing, and we work with Babu Box there. We have Navatech for building product demos, right? So I think that's largely this entire stack. Then obviously Google Analytics for social related analytics, etc.
Got it. Okay, so that's quite an extensive list. Maybe I'll add that to our show note so that folks who are interested can actually take a note of that, some of these. So, again, I mean, no conversation is really complete without speaking about AI. And there's so much going on, and there is so much of uncertainties, confusions, and also excitements and innovations, right? So both are now hand on hand in parallel going. But there are a number of use cases that we see are emerging from some of the innovations that are happening in the AI space. What is your take in that? And also, if you can share some of it, maybe you yourself are in the process of evaluating use cases.
Yeah, absolutely. I think AI is going to be a force multiplier for sure. There's no kind of two ways about it, and I think everybody is experiencing that. I think we are using quite a bit of AI around content, both creating content for our campaigns and also to kind of do a bit of videos, etc. And I think we have found it adding a whole bunch of productivity force multiplier there. We have, I mean, a lot of our products have started using AI, where we are, say, for example, on the martech side, we have products who deploy AI to kind of dynamically understand customers consumers behavioral pattern in terms of how they are using, say, a certain kind of a telecom plan, and then kind of actively recommend them in terms of what best they can move to. That's kind of a real time marketing stuff. So that's something which is happening actually on the product side. On the marketing side, right now, it's mostly demand gen and content that we are focused on. Internally, we are very open in terms of using AI more and more going, and we are seeing some of those productivity and kind of. I mean, it's really adding a lot of value in terms of how you are looking at some of the insights playing out, how you are responding back, particularly right now on the content side.
Got it. How would you recommend folks who are in the leadership position to consider AI from, just as the starter use cases? I think content definitely could be one, right?
I think it's a content is pretty much a very low lying. So I mean, it goes without saying that content
Hmm.
everybody has kind of started using. I think some of the tech that we are using within marketing, we see quite a bit of AI infusion which has started happening on that, mostly on the CRM side and on the analytics side. So I think some of this will come along with the tech that they are using. And besides that, I think it is a good platform to test some of your thoughts. But it's important not to rely on that completely. Say, for example, if you want to do a piece of content, it's not the right idea is to kind of just kind of rely on AI to give you that piece. What I would recommend is to organize your thoughts, put together your story, take it to a certain level, and then use AI to kind of refine that. Use AI to kind of sharpen that. Otherwise, it's a two-edged sword. What would also happen is you will end up with completely AI content, which otherwise may not add too much of a value because then it's largely kind of a repetition of somebody else's idea.
Yeah, it's like generic stuff, right? And people don't find anything which is personalized and brings out the, with respect to their positioning, messaging, the core value proposition of the offerings, and so on. I think
But
AI
you know,
existed.
the other wave that I see particularly is the whole personalization bit, which I believe is gonna start happening on the inbound journey, as in when people we haven't kind of gone into that route so far, but I see that happening in the next probably couple of quarters or so.
So when you say personalization, what you exactly meant?
So, somebody coming to your channels, your platforms, say a website, and it is becoming more and more possible to kind of
Serve them
understand
what?
the persona and then serve them with the AI. I think that is going to really, really speed up extremely fast in a very smooth manner, right? Where you'll be able to kind of engage the guy much, much better.
So, with my previous experience in with especially with MoEngage, which is a B2B SaaS company, one of the things that already was happening then and is happening in a more larger scale is they started off with app personalization, which is very critical because through app you essentially engage and retain your users, and that is critical for your overall unit metrics from a monetary standpoint, and also from delivering the experience, because that is your captive platform and you actually kind of own and control that platform. So whether you want to do a push messages on a specific offer which is coming on Sunday 6 a.m. or 6 p.m., or it is through an IPL match that is happening or whatever it is, right? The other aspect is that through app you are able to also know the pattern of usage by the user, right? What kind of content you consume, when do you use the app, and all of that. I think to that extent, I think maybe some kind of thought leadership driven app used in B2B context probably can be a good sort of parallel, where based on what your readers engage in, like, you serve them those kind of content dynamically, right? Maybe.
Yeah, you already see them happening in some of the social platforms.
Hmm.
uh, I mean, every day, depending upon the kind of content you consume, the recommendation is gonna kind of thrown out. So I think some of this is gonna become more and more in the inbound marketing from a web standpoint. It's
Hmm.
easy to kind of track the user on the app side so far,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, and on the channels.
Yeah.
But I think that's going to extend to the website as well.
Yeah, the website personalization came after that, which is, I think, is still evolving.
Yeah.
And the only challenge there is, unlike app, different browsers, different compatibility. You have data privacy rules, so many other things because of your cache data and all should not be tracked because of GDPR policies. So website has a larger issues to deal with as compared to app, which is basically voluntarily, where you have given your credentials and downloaded the app, and that sort of sits in your device. So just switching the context now, Surya, one of the areas I think I really wanted to touch upon is on the career aspect, right? Now, you have reached in the corporate ladder to a CXO position, and you have been in this position for a while. I'm sure you must have observed what skills and strengths that actually are required to reach this position and sustain it over a period of time. For folks who are currently maybe at the mid career level or even at the junior level, aspiring to be a CMO tomorrow, what kind of skills and capabilities you think are going to matter in 2025 and beyond to become a CMO with so much happening, right?
Yeah, so I think one of the fundamental things that one need to build is this whole kind of continuous sense of curiosity to understand what's happening around and learn from that. Because what you're doing right now is going to be redundant in 5 or 7 years easily. So the whole kind of evolution is really amazing from a text stack, a tech standpoint, data standpoint, the whole marketing mix standpoint, actually. So I think that's gonna fundamentally, I think that's a skill set that one needs to have, is to completely stay hungry and stay very curious in terms of what's happening around. The other extremely important aspect is understanding and being aligned to the business, understanding the nuances of your business in terms of what works and what doesn't work. I think that's a very different kind of a capability needed. There are people I've seen who are very sharp on the marketing horizontal skills, but probably they need to do more on the business side of it.
Business side.
So bringing that balance is extremely critical. And I think these are the two aspects. One is this whole kind of whole ability to really be aligned with the business and talk their language, and then bring it back to marketing. Be aware of what's really happening around, appreciate the right ideas. You may not, after a certain amount of time, be an expert in all the functions, but I think you need to bring that wisdom to understand what would work for your business, and then accordingly repivot the organization behind that.
Yeah, on the point of basically building that business knowledge, I think it's also important for someone like a CMO who would also require engaging with maybe the customers and going deeper in discussion in terms of in their industry what is going on and how your own business is actually making an impact there and what innovations are driving and
Absolutely.
so on.
Absolutely. Customers and your sales colleagues, how frequently you connect with them, both formally, informally, and a lot of those insights, how do you imbibe them on a regular basis? Because those are the sources of information in terms of what's really happening in the market and what is the problem that the business teams are navigating through. So the more you are kind of talking to them, the more you are reflecting in terms of how you can be of strategic help to them. and
Yeah.
and I think a CMO is the bridge between the business and the marketing team.
Hmm.
So I think there's a lot of onus on the CMO to translate that in terms of what the team needs to do and what
Absolutely.
are the
Yeah.
priorities they need to kind of go after. And then there is the other aspect where, the teams would come back to you with a lot of ideas, and you need to appreciate that, you need to back some of them, and also to kind of control some of them, because you need to balance your resources. So there might be an idea where you probably may not have executed them, but your gut feel or instinct might say that this is something which would work in the business context in which you operate. This whole knack of linking this two is something that needs to be brought in, and I see some of that becoming very critical.
Yeah. I think the other important thing I experienced is that your ability to manage a cross functional peer group, a strong relationship within the organization, and also stakeholder management as well in many cases. I think that probably sort of separates you from rest of the gang. I mean, what I basically mean to say is that maybe as a functional knowledge, you probably are still a marketing expert, maybe across different sort of branches of marketing and so on. But then when it comes to orchestrating something big, especially at an enterprise marketing level, where you are actually dealing across different type of stakeholders, whether it's your agency partners, your go to market partners, your customers, your senior colleagues, and getting them on board with something that you are trying to drive requires a different kind of leadership skills, and that probably is not taught or cannot be taught in a B school, right?
Yeah, so the stakeholder management is a little misunderstood term. A lot of times people figure that in terms of keeping your stakeholders in good humor. But what I have realized more often than not is to ensure that you are adding value to some of their challenges, right? So it's not a relationship management. It's hearing them, and it's ensuring that you bring value to them, and I think that would be the sustained way in which you would keep your teams aligned and you focused on on the objectives. So I think when I said, you become the bridge in terms of communicating those priorities and balancing the whole mix, that's what I am kind of referring to. And I think that's the role which is extremely critical. In modern times, I have felt that ideation is becoming a collective job, where a lot of people within the team, outside the teams, particularly from a marketing standpoint, are able to throw up all kind of suggestions and ideas. And I think you, being at the central, need to process that and understand what would work and what would not work.
Agree. Yeah.
And I think that is going to be the new context in which the marketing is going to operate.
Correct, agree. So now I wanted to switch back, and it's a good segue to that. So, what do you do yourself to keep yourself updated with the latest and probably greatest that are happening in within marketing and also in your domain, maybe in the business side as well?
So I read quite a bit, and I generally
What kind
follow.
of stuff you read?
When I say I read quite a bit, I normally read experiences of some of my peer folks, read, watch, go through. And I think some of that has been the best source of knowledge. There are people, there are channels that you would follow, and you will stumble across some really good piece of insight. But more often than not, I've seen some of your colleagues talking about them, some of the groups that you are in where challenges are being discussed. So, primarily peer level insights are something that work very well. There was a time when I used to go through certain formal education in terms of what you need to do if you want to really tighten up your SEO game, what you need to do if you want to deliver a very sharp content piece, etc. But that was like a long time back. I think in the last so many years, I think I have been observing what some of the colleagues are saying and what are they experiencing, and that pretty much is the best practical source of learning.
Got it. Okay. And in terms of your own engagement in the industry, I have also noticed that you are usually active in participating in different kind of community events, sharing your thoughts in different panels and interviews and so on. Any thoughts, suggestions for folks who are again looking to build a career as marketing leaders?
I think I can do much more on that side. I wish I had the kind of time and the focus to kind of go out and participate more. But occasionally I do kind of go out and be a part of that. I think those are amazing learning platforms. So every event that I go to, I normally come back very pleased in terms of what you hear some of your colleagues talk about and share. And I think those are the kind of forums that really stir you up in terms of so much happening and learning being. So I think those are the right. Just that you have to figure out what is relevant for you. There is so much activity happening in the industry, you can't possibly be a part of. So I think the criteria there is whether this is something which is relevant in terms of the theme and the participants. And those are the ones where I look forward to kind of participate.
Got it. Got it. So before I let you go, Surya, where can people find you?
Well, I'm not very active on social media, but I'm more of a kind of a reader rather than a writer. But LinkedIn is where they can kind of write to me, and I'll be kind of very happy to kind of respond back. But I'm a little kind of I can do much more in terms of uh, sharing and posting on social.
Got it, got it. So I'll share your LinkedIn profile to our show note. With that, Surya, it has been an absolute pleasure learning from you and talking with you about your business, about how you run your marketing function, and also how do you view B2B marketing today and going forward. And I'm sure folks watching this episode are going to take away a lot of good nuggets from this session. And I'm hoping again, maybe in the future we'll connect again with so much changing, AI being a force multiplier. I'm pretty sure we'll have a lot to talk to in next few months again. For now, thank you again once again for coming to the show and speaking with me and sharing your wisdom and knowledge. I look forward to connect with you again.
Thanks, Jaydeep. Absolute pleasure. And I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. Amazing questions, and absolutely glad to kind of speak to you.
Thank you, Surya.
All right. Bye bye.